So the stock market game, it's a program of the SIFMA Foundation. The SIFMA Foundation is the nonprofit organization that has championed an innovative education and financial capability since its inception in 1977. So we've gone from paper-based stock picking contests all the way to a high-tech interactive electronic trading platform that features ETFs, ESG investments, bonds, mobile applications, lessons in ethics, sustainability, asset allocation, and risk management, and more. So we like to say we are the gold standard in financial education, and we have evolved over the years to stay relevant and applicable. Our commitment to closing opportunity gaps by advancing financial education has helped level the playing field for over 22 million students and their teachers to participate in the global marketplace and become financially independent. And we aim to serve even more students this year. Our goal is 1 million, and thank you to our teachers, our volunteers, and ambassadors of the program who are helping us to achieve this goal. So the Invested Forward, where all of our volunteers are from, have helped us tremendously in exposing our students to the wonderful world of the financial services industry. And we all know that exposure is everything. So it's one thing for students to utilize the stock market game platform to conduct research and analyze their strategy. These are all incredibly essential to learning and navigating these financial instruments. But so is exposure to real people, and our Invested Forward program does exactly that. So Invested Forward brings students' newfound investment education to life by exposing them to the people, opportunities that exist within the financial services industry. So IIF allows students the chance to connect to financial professionals across sectors and roles, from entry level all through to senior leadership. So the thousands of financial industry professionals across the country volunteer their time, their knowledge, and their experience to help SMG teachers and students like yourselves have a real world understanding of the markets and the financial services industry at large. So these interactions have been instrumental in helping students to realize the full potential of their investment choices and also spark some career curiosity. And that's what we're here to achieve today. So today's career fair aims to provide stock market game teachers and students with additional insight into those areas of wealth management, FinTech, cybersecurity. So before we begin, I'll have our financial professional volunteers introduce themselves by name, role, and firm affiliation. And I think the best way to kick off and have the flow is based on the flow we will go through today. So I'll kick off with our panelists for asset and wealth management. If you can introduce your name, your firm affiliation, and your role. I'll have Beth start us off.
Hi there to everyone. Thank you for joining us. So exciting to see so many great faces on this Zoom. My name is Beth Chingoti. I am based in St. Louis, Missouri, and I work for Wells Fargo Wealth and Investment Management. So that is the brokerage arm of Wells Fargo Bank. And I lead the women's initiative for the firm. So that means that all of the different efforts that we engage in, from bringing women into the industry, helping them from a business development standpoint, making them incredibly successful, teaming, and then eventually when they want to retire, figuring out who's going to take over their book after them, all the way through a woman's life cycle as a financial advisor is all part of the work that I do. So I'm thrilled to be here. I did not come up from a financial background, but made my way here and really excited to speak with you all today. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Beth, and I'll turn it over to you, Deanna.
Thank you. Listen, team people, I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity. My name is Deanna Juricic, and I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work for TIA, and my title is Director of the Spanish Advisory Team. But don't let the Spanish just tell you, we do Spanish, but we speak with all people that will call into our company, and mostly is, and I'll build more on this, but mostly is helping people understand their retirement plans. And I'll build on that. But thank you for the opportunity and really excited to be here today.
Wonderful. So we'll transition after that into our cybersecurity team, and we'll kick off with Kristen. Can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. And thanks everybody for being here today. So my name is Kristen Royster. I work for Bank of America. I'm based in Washington, D.C. So shout out to all the DMV folks who I saw joining. So I'm part of our bank's global information security team, which is effectively our cyber team. And within that, I lead all of our external engagements and partnerships, which we'll talk about later. But so happy to see all of you today.
Thanks so much, Kristen. And I'll transition to Tom.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name's Tom Wagner. I work for SIFMA. And the role I play here is to really work with, U.S. government organizations such as U.S. Treasury, Homeland Security, the FBI, and of course, my colleague, Kristen Royster from Bank of America, just to prepare, the industry to, help prevent cyber attacks to financial firms and critical institutions such as the New York Stock Exchange. So I'll stop here, but I look forward to your questions later on. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tom. And we were rounding out this wonderful conversation with FinTech. And so let's kick this off with Mohammed.
Hello, hello. Is it still great morning? No, it's probably great morning somewhere, right? I'm just so happy to be here. Thank you, Sarah and Michelle and the CIFA Foundation for this. I wish this would happen when I was in middle school and high school to learn more about financial literacy. This is amazing what this is about. And Sarah, you're right. This is the gold standard. And I see that, right? So like I said, my name is Mohammed Merlin. I'm based out here in Brooklyn, New York. I work in the city. And I work for a Credit Suisse, a Swiss investment bank. I didn't know about Credit Suisse prior, so if you don't know, it's okay. And so they work with a lot of huge, ultra high net worth individuals around the world. And what I do is I help traders globally trade local currency bonds in emerging markets. So either it can be in Mexico, Brazil, Istanbul, Moscow. It could be any of those regions that I'm helping traders execute those products. So happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to the panel.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And closing us out in the FinTech division, we have John.
Hi, everybody. John Avery. Thank you, Sarah and SIFMA Foundation team. I am a big volunteer, big supporter of SIFMA Foundation, the stock market game. Like Mohammed, I too wish I had some of this. Honestly, I wish I had this 10 years ago, to be honest. And I definitely wish I had it in school. So I'm calling in from New Jersey, northern New Jersey. I do spend time in New York. I work for a company called FIS, which is a big financial technology or FinTech company. We power the financial services world, banks, credit card companies, investment firms. And we spend a lot of time working and understanding the financial markets so that we can build software and technology to process transactions in those markets. My current role, I'm responsible. I've played many different roles, and I've had a long career. And my current role is bringing the world of crypto and digital assets and NFTs and stuff like that, bringing that into this world of traditional financial services, right? And so it's very exciting. Now, as part of that, I need to make sure that I understand everything about all of the how the stock market works, how traditional financial markets work. So I too am continuing my own educational journey here. So I'm very excited to share with the team and also to hear all the different perspectives from my colleagues and peers here who are on the call with you to share in this, very exciting next 90 minutes that we have together.
Perfect. Thank you so much to all of our volunteers for joining and for sharing your time and your expertise and your experiences with us. We have no doubt that you have so much to share, so I will not get in the way any further. But I think it's so important to level set so we're all on the same page. So we're starting off with asset and wealth management with Beth and Deanna. But it will be helpful. We're going to explain just really briefly what each of the categories means. So asset management really seeks to leverage an individual's investments in order to maximize their overall returns. So wealth management's focus tends to be a bit more holistic and seeks to maximize and protect an individual's overall financial health over the long term. So our stock market game teachers and students have heard about long-term planning for the bulk of their stock market game experience. So I think there's no better way to talk a bit more in-depthly than to talk directly with some of the professionals already in that industry. And with that, we are so happy to have Beth and Deanna with us. Thank you so much. So Beth and Deanna, thank you so much for being with us. I think it's the perfect place. You all introduced yourselves already, but Beth, I'll start off with you. Can you let us know a little bit more about what your role is at Wells Fargo and what are some of the responsibilities that are involved?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I lead the women's initiative for the brokerage arm, which is probably, if you think about kind of a 50-50 split, I would say about half the work I do is really focused on our women financial advisors. So you guys have been doing the stock market game. You understand probably what a financial advisor is, but just in case you don't, I'm going to take just about 30 seconds to give a little bit of guidance. So when folks like my parents, your parents, our regular Joe people have money that they want to invest in the stock market or want to invest for the future, they work with someone, and different firms do it different ways. There are some companies where there's a lot of people in one place and they answer the phone. Then there are other companies where it might be like a doctor, right? So your parents have a specific relationship with that financial advisor. And so that financial advisor is really just like your parents may have a doctor or a lawyer that they work with. That person sits down with their client and they say, what do you want to focus on? What are the things you want to achieve with this money? For some people, it might be leaving money behind for the next generation. For other people, it may be education. So I have 2 little girls and my focus with my financial advisor is I want to make sure that they can go to school without having to take out student loans. And so that is the goal that me and my financial advisor work towards. I think that's really important that you understand the role that financial advisors can play, because everything that I do in my day-to-day is focused around financial advisors. Either I'm working directly with our financial advisors who are women, and from a percentage perspective, less than 20% of the financial advisors out there are girls. And that's really challenging, particularly because you're probably learning in school, over 50% of our population is women. So since over 50% of our population is women and less than 20% of the financial advisors in the whole industry are women, part of what I have to do is I work with our financial advisors who are women, and I help them figure out in a big company like mine where they can go for support, or I help them build out events, or I help them work on their marketing. And then the other half of the time, I work with men financial advisors who want to grow their business with women. And so sometimes it's helping them figure out what kind of events they should do, or the different language that they should do. So I like to joke to folks, and I put my coffee mug down, but I was using one earlier that says professional feminist on it. I like to joke that anything that has to do with women at Wells Fargo Advisors and our brokerage arm makes its way to me. But when I tell my girls and I try to explain to them what it is that I get to do every day, I help women. I help women financial advisors get more clients and be more successful. And then I help financial advisors who want to help women clients to grow their money as well. So at the end of the day, I am 24/7 focused on helping women have access to more capital.
Well, Beth, thank you so much for the work that you are doing. I'm sure that resonates also with a number of our stock market game teachers who are also making sure that the girls in their classroom understand and have the same access to this information and financial instruments. So Deanna, I'll transition over to you. Can you let us know a little bit more about your role and some of those direct responsibilities?
Yes, absolutely. And Beth, thank you so much for the explanation on the financial advisor, because like Beth's job is kind of divided into, so is mine. So one part of my job is I do lead a team of financial advisors, and they talk to clients all day long, helping them understand their retirement planning, their plans that are available for them to save while they're working in order so when they're done working, they have something, like a little pot of gold, hopefully at the end of their working years, so they can really just tap into that and live comfortably. So that's what I do. I have 12 advisors, and that's what they do all day long. I coach them, I help them really just help them understand they have a sales goal. How do we get to that sales goal? So all that good stuff. A second half of my job is, I mentioned that I am the director of the Spanish advisory team. So one of the things that I do at TIA and us in the company is trying to collect information to really work with our Hispanic and Latino community. How do I go to this community and explain to them the importance of saving for retirement, kind of emphasizing and learning on that financial literacy aspect of things? And that's part of what I'm doing, which my team, the financial consultants that I manage, also will do on the phones. They will speak Spanish and English to anyone that would call us, but that is our main focus. It's a brand new team. We've been together for 6 months, and we're learning a lot of good information. And there's a lot of companies that are doing great, amazing things. And that's what we're trying to do also at TIA.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that great introduction to both of you. So I'll open it up and you can feel free to answer whoever sees fit first. But what advice would you give to someone who's just starting out in your field? Beth is squealing and she's with you though, Beth.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a little pithy, but I am a lifelong learner. I think I'm so jealous of you guys who are in school, even though, yeah, you got to sit in the classroom and you got to do what people tell you to do. But I am a lifelong learner. And as someone who didn't come automatically to this field, right? I didn't graduate from college and go into financial services. I started learning, I started trying. And so my answer candidly is to keep your eyes open and absorb as much as you can. Whether you join a company as a financial advisor, as someone who works in the back office, which is what we call kind of people like me who work in the home office and aren't talking to clients all day, there is so much opportunity for learning. And this is an industry that is going through a really interesting transition right now. As you think about generations, and I'm sure you guys have looked a lot about generations and how people are retiring and kind of what comes next. The generation, you know, the baby boomers, which are sort of the people in kind of their 50s to 70s right now, they are retiring and they're starting to use their money. And so that means that the financial advisors that age are starting to retire too. The average financial advisor as of right now is a 58-year-old man. And so as we think about the future, you know, I look I can see the little dots in the classroom. I know what my daughter's classrooms look like. And the fact is that the future is a lot different, and we're going to be the ones that have money in the future. And so I share all of that to say that there's so many new things coming. There's so much interesting work that's happening in that space. And a lot of the amazing people that we have on the panel with us today are working in those technology spaces. I believe that the best thing that you can do when you start a new job, no matter where it is to keep your eyes open and learn, because there's so much room for growth. There's so much opportunity, and the technology is constantly changing. If 10 years ago, and I know one of my colleagues mentioned that he works in the crypto space, 10 years ago, if people had started talking about cryptocurrency, I think many of us would have kind of furrowed our brows and said, all right, well, that's way in the future, right? So it's the people who are willing to learn, who are willing to keep their eyes and ears open and just take every opportunity to learn and understand more and ask questions. That is always my biggest advice to anyone I meet who's kind of starting off in their career. No opportunity is wasted. There is something to learn from every conversation. So just keep your eyes open and try to absorb as much as you possibly can.
That's incredible advice. I think that goes beyond even the career space. Those are life lessons that you shared with us, Beth. So thanks so much for that. Deanna, I would wonder for you, are there any specific skills that you developed while in your role? I think a lot of students, they think about the precursors, right? The things that are required before they enter a role. And we forget that there are so many things that we develop while in a role. What were some of those skills for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sarah, because the reality is sometimes you're in school now and you're thinking your teachers are helping you keeping within a certain time limit or really being organized. Well, guess what? All those skills will follow you through life. So time management skills are really, really important. I think as a student, I was okay at that. As an employee, I have really perfected that process because in order for me to achieve a lot of things, I needed to be organized. I needed to, even from a communication skills, from a project skills perspective, that's just all comes together. Time management was really important. And I'll tell you one that I'm in the sales side. So of course, selling skills are always a skill that you can brush off and really learn and kind of perfect it. But the other really big piece that's very, very important is relationships. How do you address relationships? How do you connect with people, whether you want to learn from them or you want them to help you mentor you? You can ask them. It's like, hey, what can I learn? How did you start and learn? And then, Beth, you also said this, be always a learner. I know that you're probably thinking when you're done with school, you don't have to learn anymore, but no, we do. We learn every day. But I'll tell you, that's what really, when you uncover something new and you're kind of the subject matter expert, I always try to become that person that people will come to me and ask me questions. So that's another really big skill that is very important. And I know I threw a lot at you, but all I'm saying is, you show up to do something and be the best version of yourself every day. So let's say if on Monday you're the best version, what can you do to improve that on Tuesday? It could be a small smidge, and then what do you do on Wednesday and kind of build on all that you have been learning.
Perfect. Thanks so much. We actually have a question. So Deanna, I'll keep it with you, which someone wants to know, what does TIAA stand for? And really that's a perfect introduction into maybe providing some insight into the work that TIAA does.
Yeah, that's a great question because honestly, I've been in financial services for a long time and I've been at TIAA for 6.5 years. And in Charlotte, when you come in here, Wells Fargo and B of A are really they took over the city. I mean, Truist now a little bit, Ally a little bit. But when I worked at Wells Fargo, by the way, Beth, I came from Wells, many, many years. I didn't know what TIAA was for. I was like, what is that? So this is what it stands for. It's Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association. So that's what TIAA stands for. TIAA has been around over 100 years. It started in 1918 by Andrew Carnegie. And he funded this company with $1 million out of his own money. Okay, so 1918, $1 million was a lot of money. It was a lot of money back then. And he started this. And the reason why he started this was because he visited one of his teachers. And the teacher was living in poverty. And he's like, what happened? Where did we go wrong here? Did you not save money? What happened? And we didn't have any help for the teachers to really start saving for retirement. And what we say at TIAA is retire with dignity. How do you do that all through the time that you're working? So that's what we do. We provide retirement services to a lot of different companies, but especially our focus is around teachers, hospitals. Our big motto of ours is we serve those who serve others. That is the big piece of what TIAA does.
Thank you so much. I love that. We serve those who serve others. I absolutely love that. And our teachers are definitely those that are serving others, doing incredible work both in and out of the classroom. So major kudos. And we're obviously in very, very, very good company. Beth, I have one last question for you, and then we'll transition over to our next group. But rest assured, everyone, we'll come back with everybody at the end of the session to ask additional questions. So don't think we are through with any of you yet. But Beth, I heard you note that you actually weren't sure about this particular industry. So I know so many, they think about the financial services industry or perhaps have never thought about it. So what was your own transition into financial services? Where did you go to school? What did you originally study? How did you end up where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I don't know if we have enough time because my journey has been ridiculous. So I actually grew up, I was born and raised in California. I know the Snow White appearance really screams Southern California, right? So I grew up in Southern California, and then I went to school in Philadelphia at the University of Pennsylvania. And so I stayed in Philadelphia, and I actually studied something called comparative literature, which is basically a fancy English degree. But the thing that's really interesting about it, and I loved it, and so hopefully some of you guys will like this idea too. When we read stories in school, sometimes we will find that the same story shows up in multiple places. So for example, one that I always use is sort of Romeo and Juliet, right? So you may have read the Shakespeare version, you may have watched West Side Story. My girls actually, they did a version with garden gnomes not that long ago called Romeo and Juliet that my kids watched. So this idea of sort of the Romeo and Juliet love story has been translated across lots and lots of different communication mediums. And that's what comparative literature is. It's when you study the story being told in all of these different countries, languages, centuries, because then it's all around the people who are listening. And so it's kind of it's the study really of how that message shifts. So I've always been really interested in audiences. I have always been really interested in when you're trying to share a message, how do you make sure that you're really being thoughtful about the person who's hearing it? Because if Sarah and I, for example, were going to have a conversation about anything really, I would take a different approach having the conversation with Sarah than I would having the conversation with John, than I would having the conversation with one of my kids or with my husband or with my mom. Your conversations are always going to change a little bit based upon who you're talking to. And so I went from Los Angeles to Philadelphia to San Francisco to Austin, Texas, and then I actually moved to St. Louis in 2007. And all of my jobs prior to that were all in marketing and communications, always with this same focus, this idea of who am I talking to and what am I trying to tell them? So I moved to St. Louis in 2007 to work for the St. Louis Blues hockey team, which I thought made me the coolest person ever. And I spent about 4 seasons with the hockey team. And then I decided that I wanted to kind of get back into the marketing space. So then I went to an advertising agency, and Wells Fargo at the time was standing up a program to help financial advisors use LinkedIn. You guys are probably familiar with LinkedIn. I'm hoping that you are. I know our adults on the call are. But I definitely encourage you as you guys kind of move forward in life and get ready to start applying for jobs and stuff. LinkedIn is a really valuable platform for that. It's kind of like Facebook, but for business people. And so I came to the firm and built a program so that our financial advisors could use LinkedIn to talk to their clients, to share content, to have conversations. And again, it was all really focused on, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Financial Advisor, let's talk about what people actually want to see on social media, and let's pay attention to our audience there. And then, because I've always been, I joked about being a professional feminist, I have always been really focused on women and equality and equity and all that entails. And so when the firm put together this team, the team that I now sit on, I knew that that was the job that I needed. So I have ping-ponged all over the place, but for me, it has always been about communications. I'm a born communicator. It's what I love to do. And so it has always been about communication, understanding my audience, and then figuring out how everybody wants to be spoken to in different ways. And so I still get to do that even today when I'm meeting with FAs. So for me, it's all about audience and communication and traveling light, because I've moved so many various times, but I think I'm stuck. I'm good to go here.
Thank you so much. And that was really inspiring. So communication and really understanding your audience is huge, irrespective of the industry you're going to be involved in. And major kudos to you for being such an awesome storyteller. And I love that you mentioned that you did not start out in the traditional sense. I think a lot of students may think, oh, I have to have a major in math or business or economics in order to potentially have a space in the financial services industry. So thank you for sharing that. So I know that that provided some color to a number of our students. But we have so much more that we want to circle back with you all. There's no way to possibly get to all of it, but we're going to hold off right now. So keep your questions for Beth and Deanna coming. Just leave them in the chat box and we will come to them at end. And we will transition over to cybersecurity, an area that I know so many of you are really interested in. So cybersecurity is the practice of deploying people, policies, processes, and technologies to protect organizations, their critical systems, and sensitive information from digital attacks. And I think there's no better people to really dive into this topic than Kristen and Tom. Thank you so much, you both, for joining us today. So I will kick off in the same way, and I'll have Tom, who actually is a part of SIFMA as well, so well understood, and we thank you so much for joining us. Let us know a little bit more about your role and the work that you do within cybersecurity.
Sure, thanks, Sarah. So, we spoke a little bit about, how we are, protecting the financial industries from cyber attacks. And one of the ways that we do that is we do something called war games, where we all get together into a big conference room, and then we just try to think about what kind of attacks are possible or probable, and then we begin to just kind of talk through, okay, how prepared are we? How would we respond or react to different situation? And it's really all about, keeping the stock markets operating on a day-to-day basis. And so we do a lot of these exercises during the course of the year, and it really helps us, helps the whole industry, prepare for anything that could come our way.
Awesome. Kristen, thanks so much for joining us. Can you provide some insight into your role and some background?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I'm part of our global information security team, which the short term for that is I'm part of the cyber team. And so what we fundamentally do is we protect the bank, and we protect our customers' data, our employees' data, and then we also work to protect the sector. And when I say sector, I mean the financial sector. So that's how I work so closely with Tom, because one thing about the financial sector is it's all very interconnected. So you have all of these different firms and technology firms and services that all work together to kind of make the whole sector operate and make sure all the money flows to where it's supposed to. And so because of that, if one bank or one company has a bad day from a cyber perspective, so they suffer a cyber incident, that's going to impact a bunch of the other banks that work with them and a bunch of their other partners. So a lot of what I do is I work with people both inside our bank and then all of their counterparts, like their partners at other banks, to figure out what can we do together to make sure that the sector writ large is more secure. And so that if a cyber threat actor, effectively, if a bad guy tries to attack the financial sector, what can we all do to make sure that it's not successful, that it doesn't have an impact, that all of the information stays safe, stays where it's supposed to, and that all of the various payments and transactions and all the things that we expect to happen, everybody being able to get money from an ATM card or buy something at a store with a credit card, still happens. And so that just takes a lot of partnership And it also takes a lot of partnership and work with our government partners. So I also work closely with folks over at the Treasury Department, at the Department of Homeland Security. We work with partners at the FBI, because we're all trying to make this whole kind of world that we live in, particularly the financial sector, more secure and better defended against cyber attacks, since the cyber threat keeps increasing. And that's one reason why it's such a great area for people to be interested in, because there's a lot of work to do and we need a lot of great people to do it.
Kristen, thank you so much. That was an incredible overview. And I think so many teachers and students alike, there's always this concern about the information that we're sharing, the information that we're sharing with our financial institutions, and remaining safe. So you guys are in this industry, and I wonder what keeps you confident about the work that you are doing, and that safety is a real and achievable thing.
So what makes me confident and comfortable with it is that honestly, the financial sector was the earliest sector to really see cybersecurity as the problem that it was, kind of way back in the 90s to now what it is today. And so much investment has been made across the sector over the past 20 plus years to build strong systems, to make sure systems are secure, and to ensure that as we're building new systems, because there's so much innovation going on in this space, that is all done with security built in at the forefront, so that we're building processes and technologies that are secure from the word go, so that all of our customers and clients and all of us, I have bank accounts and credit cards. I want to make sure that my data is safe. That's what makes me confident that it is safe, and that all of the partners across the financial sector are working on this together. It's one of the few things we don't compete on. We are all in this together from a cyber perspective.
Awesome. So Tom, Kristen noted there are a number of other departments that you all work with to achieve the collective goal of ensuring client security. And with all of that, are there any particular departments that you, that students rather, would be surprised that you work with?
Not surprised that we work so closely with the government. Like Kristen said, we're all in this together, right? The government is trying to protect individual investors as much as we are. We also do a lot of international engagement as well. We work closely with the Bank of England and really banks all over the world. Because as Kristen said, this is it's really a team. It's a team effort. It's not just within the U.S. It's global. And along with that, there are just so many opportunities for people to join in this space. Right now we have over 1 million open positions globally for folks that are interested in cybersecurity. And so if this is something that interests you, if you're interested in things like, I'll call it STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and some of it gets to be, very technical as well. But there's just so many opportunities for boys, for girls, men and women in this space as well on a global basis. So yeah, lots of opportunity, not only within the U.S., but globally as well.
Wonderful. So Tom, actually to take it back for us a little bit, you are a seasoned professional in your industry, but how did you get there? Where did you initially go to school and study? And what was your own personal career trajectory?
So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I went to Brooklyn College, and at that time they had one of the best computer science programs in the country. And so I have, degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees in computer science and mathematics. And that's really, helped me along. And, we didn't call it STEM back then, but, it's really, it's STEM-like capabilities.
Wonderful. And Kristen, what about you? Where did you go to school? What did you study? And how did you end up in the financial services sector?
So I went to the University of Delaware. Go Blue Hens. Unlike Tom, I did not study computer science. I was a political science major, which for those of you guys who don't know what political science is, it's effectively social studies and government. So I studied a lot of government and history and public policy. And I found my way to found my way to cybersecurity first. So right around the time that they were creating the Department of Homeland Security, I started working for a company called Booz Allen Hamilton, which helped the government kind of create the Department of Homeland Security. And I was put on a project in 2004 related to cybersecurity partnership. So I've been doing cybersecurity partnership now for more years than I can count. And then I found my way to the financial sector about 10 years ago. I'd been working at the Department of Homeland Security, and there was an opportunity to basically work on cybersecurity partnerships, but at Bank of America, because what was happening was, they were starting to see that the cyber threats were increasing and that there was this need for more partnership and more formal partnership. And so, so they were one of the first ones to kind of build this partnership function that now a lot of the banks have. And so that's how I found my way to the financial services sector and haven't left since.
We got you, and we got you for good. And I love that. And I think all of us who are able to feel safer can thank you as well. We're really, really glad to have you both in this industry doing the work that you are doing every single day. So a question I think might be interesting for a lot of students is, what are some of the skills that are required if they were interested in pursuing cybersecurity as a field of interest?
So I'll go first. I think you can have a variety of skills, because there are some roles that are more technical in nature, kind of where a background and interest in STEM and science and math is really helpful. But there are also a lot of other roles that require what are referred to as soft skills, communication skills, both writing and verbal communications, and engagement skills. So being able to work well with others and build relationships and partnerships with people. And folks who have both of those are like the stars. Like if you have a technical interest and you also write well and talk well, then like the sky's the limit. Now, I personally don't have a technical background. I always joke that I'm one of the fewer technical people around the wonderful group of people that I work with. But I've learned more technical things over the years, and I continue to learn. So kind of going back to what Beth said about being a lifelong learner, there are always ways within cybersecurity, because the field is so vast, to really take your individual interests and find a home for them in cybersecurity. And for folks who might not be as interested in the technical part of it, but really like kind of the intelligence analysis piece of it. So like, thinking about how the different bad guys are thinking about why they want to attack people and how they might want to do it. That's a different skill set than people who are, writing code and actually building the technology, what I refer to as hands-on keyboard. So there are a lot of different roles for folks. And so if people just have an interest, there is a role, and there's always a path.
Yeah, I think that's right, Kristen. I mean, in today's world, what firms are looking for is expertise. Find something that you truly love, become a drop dead expert in something. I mean, we still are looking for people with broad skills, social skills as well. But really, at the end of the day, try to become an expert in something. I think you all are so lucky today to have something like Google. You can go on Google and just learn so much. We didn't have that. We didn't have that back then. We had libraries and real books, but That's the only advice, I could offer, find something that, you truly love, and then learn as much as you can about it, and, find your area of expertise.
Thank you so much, Tom and Kristen. Find something you love and find your area of expertise. What I love is that this provides so much fuel for our students, right? Because I think there are so many interests, and especially depending on their ages, they may feel as though it's going so many different ways, but you'll have the opportunity to really hone in on one or a few and really put your energy there to continue expanding your learning. We are going to shift gears right now over into FinTech, but Tom and Kristen, don't go too far because I'm sure we'll have a number of questions at the end of the session. So we're going to shift over to FinTech. So FinTech is the development and application of new technology that aims to help companies, business owners, and consumers better manage their financial operations, their processes, and their lives by utilizing specialized software and algorithms. And the people who are going to help make this a bit more concrete and we can understand it are John and Mohammed. So thank you so much for joining us. And I'll kick things off with you, John. Even though I provided our attendees with an explanation of FinTech, I'm sure you guys can explain it a whole lot better in a way that all of us can understand pretty succinctly. So John, let us know who you are, what your role is, and help us better explain what is FinTech exactly.
Indeed, would love to, Sarah. Thanks. And I know I shared a lot of information on my background at the beginning of the call, but once again, FIS is a big FinTech company. What do we offer? We offer software and services that power the world of financial services. But many of the clients that use our software, we have 20,000 clients around the world. These are clients like Credit Suisse, like Mohammed's company that Mohammed works for. We offer and sell software and deliver software and services to the market for transactions. Things like if you have a bank account and you log into your bank on your mobile phone, for example, or your parents do, that is likely running through software that's provided by FIS. And our software, some of our software platforms in FinTech, it's not just new software, that computer software that runs the financial services world. Some of our technology is 40 years old or 45 years old. Software is all running behind the scenes to power financial services like banking transactions, where you have a checking account or a savings account and you deposit money or take money out. All of that gets recorded through software. Or if you use a credit card to buy something, you buy something at a store and you swipe your credit card, or you go to like an Amazon and you type in your credit card to buy something through Amazon to get it shipped to your house. All of that runs through financial services technology, or FinTech. It's a very exciting, vast world. Like I said, we have 20,000 clients. We have 65,000 employees just in FIS alone who are responsible for this world of FinTech that we offer to our clients around the world. So it's very exciting. Now, how does it relate to the stock market? Well, the stock market is one of those financial markets, that is powered by tremendous amounts of technology behind the scenes. Technology to, once again, record transactions, keep a record of, create reports on those transactions, to manage the investment decisions that companies make. And most excitingly, for all of the software that powers the financial world of the markets, like the stock market, there's also hundreds of thousands of people like myself and like the professionals that you're hearing about on the call today. There are hundreds of thousands of people like us who've chosen to be in the career of providing financial services or FinTech, financial technology, to power financial services around the world. So that's when I think about FinTech, and I think about FinTech for this call. How do we relate it? Back to everything that you're learning about. Well, everything you're learning about and might eventually do in your career at some point in the future is powered by software behind the scenes. And that's what I focus and spend my time on. Also supporting clients like Mohammed. Mohammed, you want to talk a little bit, I guess, from a Credit Suisse perspective?
Perfect.
I love that transition, and I loved everything you said, and I love how you said it as well, software that powers the industry, and I see that on a day-to-day basis. I don't know if any of you guys has ever seen The Wolf of Wall Street or any of those films. I used to think that that's how Wall Street used to be, and I would say because of the integration of technology, there's not as much yelling and mayhem and craziness happening on the trading floor. Things operate a lot more smoothly. So those applications that traders are working on, I help deliver those products and work with vendors such as FIS or Bloomberg or TradeWeb to integrate those products within our system. Because if someone is doing it better, we might as well leverage that platform and save money and integrate it into our systems. So that's what I do on a day-to-day. I do that locally in a domestic front, and also do that internationally. Like I mentioned before, I work with traders in Mexico, Brazil, and in London as well. So I didn't even know FinTech even existed. I only knew of financial services, and I only knew of technology. And then come to find out, there's a beautiful intersection between the two. And that's that sweet spot that I love to add value through the integration of technology.
Thanks so much, you both. We've had a lot of questions about, our students will hear things like business analytics and digital analytics. What exactly does that mean? And how is it impacted in the industry?
Mohammed, you want to go first? I have a perspective, and it can absolutely connect that back to FinTech. But those types of analytics, I'm sure, Mohammed, you actually, part of the work you do every day relies on some of those analytics that were described.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And there's data everywhere. We ingest and produce so much data all around the world. There's gigabytes, petabytes, there's yottabytes of information out there. And what's really cool about data analytics and or digital analytics, or however you want to call it, is how can you tell a story to people so that it can communicate a message that's useful. So I like, there's a saying, insightful analytics, right? It's one thing to just produce a table or produce a graphic, but what does it say? What story is it telling? How can I make it useful so I can either save money or increase profits for the firm? So that was very interesting. And that's when powerful technology such as SQL or Tableau or Power BI comes in, or Grafana comes in to tell those stories to users such as traders and business heads to produce to generate more revenue for the firm.
And I relate it back to the stock market game itself, because all of the investment decisions that you're learning how to make through something like the stock market game, what business analytics, digital analytics in financial services or on Wall Street for the stock market, they're taking a lot of the things that you learned and might be doing on with a pencil and paper, or you might put into a simple spreadsheet like Excel or Google Sheets. What business analytics and digital analytics are in FinTech is actually taking those and turning those into software that becomes part of an overall program or part of an overall digital interface that you might find on a mobile phone, or in the very complicated trader screens of charts that you might see on a trading desk, like in where Mohammed works in New York City. You might have a trader that has 8 different monitors, computer monitors, with all of these exciting, interesting looking graphs and charts. But it all starts with very simple math that's combined together into software that runs on computers, right? And so I would say digital analytics, business analytics, you're already doing it if you're actually making investment decisions in the stock market game. But you're just doing it, as the first step in definitely a long journey to much more complex analytics. But it all starts with very similar foundations to what we see in the stock market game.
Thank you so much for that, John. Perfect explanation. And so I think you're the perfect person also to answer the question of what excites you the most about your specific job and FinTech as a whole.
I definitely answer that question probably at least once or twice a day at this point. Listen, what excites me most is I started off writing code when the web was just, the internet had just started in 1993. And every day since 1993 that I've been doing this, almost 29, 30 years, software and new ideas for how to apply software to financial services of all kinds, whether it's investing or payments, e-commerce, like buying things on Amazon.com. Every day there is some new company or some new person who believes that they can use software to create a better world, to create a more efficient world, to maybe get rich by building a company and to disrupt all the existing companies that exist. And that has been an endless journey of learning, of watching, and learning about how the world works. So what excites me most is just that there's a never-ending opportunity to keep learning. And I'm confident I will keep learning even well into retirement. It's probably not coming soon enough, but it's well into retirement. I will continue to be learning about how software and financial services come together in FinTech, because it's just so exciting. And there's a lot of other interested people, like the people on this call, who are all impacted by today's technology and tomorrow's technology.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Mohammed, I'll turn over to you in terms of, just like I've asked a couple of our other volunteers, what has been your career trajectory? Where did you go to school? What did you study? How did you end up here? I know you mentioned that you didn't really know too much about FinTech and that was new overall for you. How did you get here?
That's a great question. And as Beth was speaking earlier, very non-traditional route reminds me a lot of my story. So both of my parents are actually from Haiti. And so I'm a first generation, I like to say I'm a first generation, everything you can think of. So I literally, the environments I grew up in was actually really tough. The kids I went to school with, they were literally in gangs, or unfortunately, some of the people I grew up with, they passed away. And I say all that to say is because that's why it's so powerful that the teachers that you have in your classrooms, your parents, your mentors that's in your life, it's grateful to have them, because that's what happened to me. It takes a village. A teacher named Cynthia Davis told me, hey, I refuse to let you end up in jail. And you're going to go to school one day and go to college. And mind you, you're telling a 12-year-old to go to college. And I don't even know what college was, right? My parents didn't go. No one around me went to college. And so literally fast forward, I ended up getting a first generation scholarship to University of Florida. And then I didn't, once again, hold every step of the way in my career has been this discovery. It's always been, I've been figuring out along the way with the guidance of mentorship. That's the key theme in my entire career. And so literally I go to the University of Florida. I didn't know anything about leadership, anything about organizations. And then I got involved in different things, got connected to a diversity program. And once again, I didn't know what financial services was about. I didn't know that engineers could even work for a financial services company. And then come to find out they have application developers as business analysts. So I started out as a business analyst in the internship. I learned a lot there. I had a lot of imposter syndrome because I'm like, why would they hire someone from a west side of Orlando? Why would you even trust me? And so I had an imposter syndrome for many, many years, even when I went full time. And it took mentorship to say, hey, Mohammed, you belong. You can develop the skills, you can learn. And I like to tell people all the time is that I'd rather you hire for character and you train for skill. I would say so many jobs out there, you can learn on the job. And I think that's a perception out there that you have to learn everything before you get to a job. You will learn a lot on the job, because most of the skills I have now, I learned from my internship and when I went full-time in that transition. So, and now I've been here for 4 years now, Credit Suisse, next year will be 5. Just got promoted in this past January. And that all came from mentorship, that all came from that village. And it all started from that teacher saying, hey, Mohammed, you can do more than being a drug dealer, basically.
Well, I love the power in your story. I think more of us, whether it sound similar to yours, but we all have different backgrounds. And I think definitely what is so important and consistent among all of our volunteers is the relationships that you build along the way. Those that, whether they end up as mentors, whether they open up the new doors for opportunities, relationships, and in this case, promotions, congratulations for that, but also teachers, huge kudos to all of our stock market game teachers out there, because you guys are serving as a major vehicle to exposing students to a larger industry, as well as all of the volunteers that we have right now. Now, perfect, Mohammed, you mentioned, as so many others did, that you learned a lot of skills on the job. So I'll actually transition right back over to you, John, and in the long capacity of your financial services career, what are some skills that have been developed in you during your time?
I mean, I continue to be so appreciative of the support I had from teachers to learn how to communicate. And I think even just listening to the call, right? Beth, Diana, Kristen, Tom, right? Different perspectives, different backgrounds, but I think the common theme in everything that we've said, right, including Mohammed, and why are we on this call today? It's because we're communicating. It's not about the technical details of what we're doing. And I'm not sure you want to know some of the technical details about what I do every day, you know, like about the details of the projects that I'm working on. But what's most important is what's common, what's been common throughout the long career that I've had. It's in learning how to communicate. That means learning how to write things down. Sometimes how to draw pictures when somebody doesn't really understand the words that you wrote, learning how to do, you know, and use simple math to just say, well, this is why we should do something. Well, because we can make money if we invest X and we can, you know, make X plus Y. That's a good business case. And it's really being able to combine all of the different things. Quite honestly, you know, and I have two students. I have a student in high school and a student in second year in college. And I see what they're learning, and I see they're learning so many different things. They're learning English and history and writing and math and social studies and government. And what I realize, you know, what's so important is those all come together. When you're in a professional career, those things all come together at the same time. Sometimes I'm writing about what's going on in Washington, D.C. in the government. I've actually spent some time as part of SIFMA collaborating in classrooms with some of our House of Representatives, representatives from our U.S. government, and then I communicate about what I'm doing, and I share that with the team that I have in FIS. So I guess the one thing that I've learned is that a lot of the stuff that I learned when I learned how to communicate. A lot of what I do now is based on the things that I learned when I was in high school, and the teachers that looked out for me to develop my skills even before I got to college. And I'm really grateful for having that opportunity to be educated on so many different things and learn so many different things. And I can even see it now in the homework that my 16-year-old still has. I look at that and say, it looks just like the email that I had to send to try to get a project going with a company that we're working with. It's literally the same thing. It just, you know, it's only over time do you start to make those connections. So in my mind, learning how to communicate in writing, verbally like this, talking to your friends, talking to your teachers, talking to your family, all of that really matters, because that is what work is. You know, there's no magic, there's no, you know, you're not missing anything. You're actually learning how to work by being in school. But sometimes you just have to hear people that have been doing it for 20 or 30 years to realize that. All we do is, you know, communicate, and that's really exciting.
Thank you so much for that. I could have used that when I was in school as well.
Yeah, there were definitely some things I missed. Yeah, for sure. I agree sometimes. Yeah.
And then some. So we're going to transition in a bit, but I have one more question for you, Mohammed, and then we will transition to the entire group and open up the floor for questions for anyone. So anyone who has any questions for any of our volunteers or specific industries, please do not hesitate to ask them away, put them in the chat, and we will transition shortly. But before we get there, Mohammed, my final question for you. can you perhaps walk us through what's a day in the life of someone in your field? What's your typical workday like?
It's really cool because not only I work with individuals here in the US, I work with individuals in many different countries and cultures. And to that point, because people grew up in different backgrounds, I'm learning about their cultures in Mexico and Brazil, in India. And so I'm learning so much about their families and what they're doing. And these are real people. And the funny part is that I never met them any before in my life. And we have such great relationships. And that's why I love what John said. There's a lot of information and relationships that can be built through communication. I think Deanna was saying that earlier as well. And so a day in the life is, actually this morning I was up at 7 talking to someone in India about automation, because that's something else I do. I test our applications and we're working on automating them. So that's what I was doing this morning, running across an automation. And it's really cool to see my browser pop up by itself. We use something called an IDE, IntelliJ. I literally press the green button and it runs, and literally my entire web page is moving by itself and it's executing a test trade on its own. Right. And I thought that's really cool to me. I even told him, I was like, yo, this is really cool that's happening right now. So I do that. And also too, I'm documenting this process so that we don't want one person knowing all this information, right? Because let's say someone gets sick, how will we know to be able to execute this type of automation or trades? So I'm documenting this process so that anybody can actually go on this wiki page and learn how to execute this automation. Also too, since I working with people in different time zones, I'm messaging people once again in Brazil, per se, there's a trader there. There's traders in Mexico, we're helping them execute trades on a new platform. We rolled it out recently this year, our new trading platform internally. And so that's something else I work with them with. So it's a lot of stakeholder management as well, a lot of global governance. I help with that as well. Because for example, next week I booked for our final review as the global team. So I run those governance calls as well. So there's a lot of leadership in there, matrix management, stakeholder management. And matrix management, I didn't even know what that term was before this year. So that's literally working with different stakeholders and helping lead them to a goal, but not necessarily them reporting up to me. So that's something new I learned recently. So I believe Beth said it, Deanna said it, John said it. We're forever learning day by day. And I love the term Kaizen. It's a Japanese term for continuous improvement. And I live by that. So that's the day in the life of Mohammed Mira.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And well, in the spirit of continued improvement, I'm going to open up to overall questions for all of our attendees. But before we jump into those, I want to thank everyone in advance for participating, for attending, for your patience, for listening, and in advance for the questions that you are going to ask. Thank you for our volunteers in advance for answering them. And I know that this is just a small portion of perhaps a greater experience, but rest assured, you can absolutely always request a financial professional to connect your specific classroom. So if you would like to keep this conversation going on a personal front, and I know you absolutely do, you can always make a request to meet with a financial professional about this topic or other topics at any point throughout your stock market game session. So whether you're already in session, if you're already prepping for the spring or participating in the year long, feel free to make that request at any point online.